Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear brothers and sisters, we welcome you all to this online Q&A series. Inshallah, let's try to cover one question for today. And the question for today is, how should one observe fast in places where the day spans for more than 20 hours? Like I told you initially, we will take all the questions which is related to fasting in Ramadan or any of the questions for the benefit of the audience. So having said that, I chose this question because I felt it's relevant for many people living abroad who are trying to observe fast during the month of Ramadan. My dear brothers and sisters, most of us living around the Indo-Pak region and in the Gulf countries also have a maximum of like 13 to 15 hours of fast is what we observe every day. So that's the maximum we will be going through on an average. It may be slightly less and slightly more, but on an average, most of the times we will be actually fasting for almost 13 to 15 hours. So that's the norm what we do. And the reason why we derive at that of taking into account of 13 to 15 hours is not because we wanted to. It is because from the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah talks about the fasting in the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse number 187, Allah says, "And eat and drink until the white thread, the light of the dawn, appears to you distinct from the black thread." We all know that there is a distinguishing time between the Fajr and the time when we start the Suhoor. When we start the time of Suhoor, that is the time what Allah talks about here. So if you observe it minutely, when this time is called as the white thread is actually differentiated from the black thread. But during the time of Sahaba Ikram, they used to basically take the white thread and try to differentiate. That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to say here. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here that the day and night is basically wrapped into the night is basically wrapped by day and day is wrapped by night. So this is a time when the day unfolds over the night. So this is that juncture which we say that this is the particular time when the day unfolds from that of the night. So this is not with respect to the Gregorian time where after 12 o'clock you consider it as the next day. No, not like that. It's very scientific that every night when the darkness of the night is so much, and from that darkness the start of the day is when it is not the sunrise, it is just before the sunrise, the time exactly when we do the sahur, that is called as the time where we start our fasting. So this is very clear, my dear brothers and sisters. Now, having said that, people living across Indo-Pak and the Gulf regions will observe fast for 13 to 15 hours based on this particular scientific proof. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about the start time in the Quran, and the end time is taught by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would fasten to open the fast immediately after the sunset. So he would wait for the sunset and immediately go for opening up the fast. So this is the norm, and we know the start time and we know the end time of Ramadan. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, so this is a very common practice across the people. But however, when it comes to certain people living in some extreme weather conditions, those people are subjected to identify, those people are subjected to know whether it is mandatory or is it compulsory for them to fast the whole of the day. When I say the whole of the whole day spans like 20 hours for some people. For example, let me give you an example. If you understand the Muslims living around the region of Arctic, these people will have always witnessed the midnight sun. So every night in the midnight is what we call like 12 a.m. in the night. These people will be witnessing the sun, right? So when they witness the sun in the midnight, that means literally they don't even have end of the day. So it is close to 24 hours or 23 and a half hours is when the day will be prolonged. So having said that, if the day is prolonged for 23 hours, is it mandatory for these people to fast for 23 hours? That's exactly what we need to understand. But before we understand this one thing I would like to remind you, my dear brothers and sisters, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a lot of characteristics, lot of attributes, and one of the best and the foremost attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He is Ar-Rahim. He is the most merciful you can ever find. He's the most merciful of anybody. So there is no limit of any mercy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is most merciful is one fundamental thing which we should know. Secondly, if you talk about any ruling in Islam, so there are certain things which is made as mandatory in Islam. There are something which is made as obligatory prayers in Islam. There are made something which is made as compulsory prayers or mandatory prayers in Islam. Considering the mandatory prayers or the mandatory worships also, whenever there is a need for you, or whenever there is a circumstance in which we are not able to perform that mandatory salah, we have certain privileges in Islam. So that shows the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And talking about this one, I would like to reiterate one other verse from the Holy Quran. If you read the Quran, chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 286, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa us'aha. So this is a very, very fundamental ruling in Islam, my dear brothers and sisters, for us to understand any form of situation where we are tormented, to any form of situation where we are not able to tolerate, we can always go back and refer to this particular verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa us'aha. Allah does not impose upon any soul a duty but to the extent of its ability. Now, this is the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Almighty who created the mankind knows the weakness of mankind. Like Allah says in another place in the Quran, Khuliqal insana dha'ifa, I have created the human beings in a state of weakness. They are like so subtly created, and that's the reason why Allah has given us a lot of privileges in this religion. For certain people who would feel that Islam is one of the religions which is tough to follow, I deny from the fact, because Islam itself is not in line with the fact that it's a complex religion. It's so simple religion. Everything is simplified in the religion. Every practice is simplified so much that any person living across any part of the life wouldn't feel a burden of this one. Now, having said that, because this religion is a religion of ease, Inna Dina Yusrun, this religion is a religion of ease. This religion is for the humanity. This religion is for the benefit of the humanity. This religion is crafted finally by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taking into account of every nook and corner of the weakness what a human being is subjected to. So that is very astonishing fact about this religion. Now, because of this, all this fundamental thing, we should also look for certain hadith to see if there is any provision given in terms of adverse conditions. Now, my dear brothers, I'm not talking about the normal condition where we fast for like 13 hours or 15 hours, or sometimes it goes to 18 hours. So this is all like kind of, slightly okay. It is all tolerable. But I am talking about some adverse condition where a person is subjected to fast for more than 23 hours. That is, close to impossible. So having said that, if we look at the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we can find one related hadith in this context. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was explaining about the coming of the Dajjal, we all know this is the Antichrist. The Dajjal is going to come just close to the time of the Qiyamah, close to the time of the Judgment Day. This person by name Dajjal will be coming into picture. So when this person Dajjal comes, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was explaining about the Dajjal. In one juncture, it is mentioned in Ibn Majah, hadith number 4075, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes about the Dajjal, and the question what the Sahabas asked is so relevant to this particular answer. Now, when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about the Dajjal, he was telling about all forms of thing what this Dajjal will be performing on a day-to-day basis. And one Sahabi asked him, what is the lifespan of Dajjal on this earth? So for that, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained that he will live for 40 days. Now, this 40 days is not like an ordinary 40 day like you and me go through. This is not like that. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam furthermore explained that the 40 days will appear something like this. The first day of this 40 days will be equal to almost a year like what we go through. It would be like a year for us, right? Second day of this 40 days is going to be something like a month long. How much would a month be long enough for us? We would feel the second day of this 40th day as a month. The third day of this 40th day would be in the length of a week. So, which is like similar to a week. We'll basically experience that this particular day is almost equal to 1 week of our time. Now, what about the remaining 37 days? Those 37 days are all like normal days. So immediately when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told this one, the thinking of Sahaba Ikrams are so diligent that they immediately asked Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "O Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if this person is going to live for this 40 days and one such day would be equal to 1 year of our lifetime, how do we observe our prayer? So this is a very, very valuable question during the time of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because Sahabas did not just blindly listen to what Prophet Muhammad said. Rather, they wanted to understand how do they follow the religion, because any form of prayer, for that matter, we all know that Salah is one form of prayer which has to be observed 5 times a day. And if the day is like is equal to the length of 1 year, then Sahabas were confused as to how do we observe that particular Salah for that particular day. So it is not only specific to Salah, my dear brothers and sisters. When the question is posed with respect to prayer, it includes all forms of prayer, right? We all know that fasting is also a form of ibadah. Fasting is also a form of worship. So when this question is posed, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has given us a very clear guideline that in that case, when you arrive at such adverse conditions, you can very well estimate that particular day. Now, coming back to how do we estimate is all relying upon us. Now, coming back to 23 odd hours is when the people living in Arctic are going subjected to do fasting. Now, these brothers can very well make an average estimation, and they can come up with an estimation of start of the day and end of the day and observe fast for that one, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them, because Allah is the most merciful. However, people living in India may also feel this difference. Like some places the time will be like 13 hours, and some places it will be 15 hours. And countries like Germany, where the person is actually from, the duration of the day will be anytime between 13-14 hours to maximum of 18-19 hours. So if it's a summer, the current situation in Germany is like the 3 o'clock or 2:40 in the AM is when you're supposed to start the fasting, and night around 8:30 is when we are supposed to end the fasting. So this accounts to around 18 hours. Now, since Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has not given us a clear guidance of how much hours you are supposed to estimate, it all relies on us. Now, a brother cannot take this this as an adverse condition. 18 hours is slightly higher when compared to 13 or 14 hours, but it is much better when compared to 23 hours where the brothers in Arctic are subjected to. So having said this, 18 hours, it should be okay. So this is all purely based on this. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has not put any timeline for this one. So this is purely based on our opinion. And like I earlier reminded the verse from the Quran, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha. Allah will not subject anybody beyond the capacity of that particular soul. Allah will not torment. Allah will not put any burden on anybody beyond the capacity of that particular person. Having said this, my dear brothers and sisters, if it is an adverse condition like an Arctic, of course you can do an estimate. However, if it is slightly here and there, like in some Gulf countries also, they are subjected to fast for almost 16 hours based on the season in which the Ramadan month fits into. So I think 16 hours or 17 hours should be okay. But if it is any time beyond 19 or 20 hours, which we feel is like most of the time is gone in the day, and you literally don't get any time for food, number one. Number two, you should also consider here that you will literally not even get any time for Salah. So considering these two things, we can very well do an estimate, and that is totally permissible in Islam. Like I keep repeating, Ad-Deenu Yusran, the religion is a religion of ease. So you don't find anything which is burdening you. You don't find anything compelling in this religion which is forcing you to say that I cannot follow this particular religion if I live in this particular land, because it's the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah lillahi dinul khalis. Indeed, this religion indeed this religion is of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has crafted this religion for the human beings, considering the weakness of the human beings, He has given us so much privileges in Islam that we should be proud of, and try to adhere to the religion as much as possible. By this we come to the conclusion of this question. Inshallah, we'll try to cover as many questions as possible. Unfortunately, we were not able to cover the questions for the last 2 days due to some technical issues. Inshallah, going forward, we'll try to ensure that at least we cover one question a day. Please send in your questions to the WhatsApp number 9886 944636. I repeat, 9886 944636. Wa akhir da'wana walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.